Hi, my name's Alan. I've worked in the bike industry for about 17 years now, mostly as a photographer, also doing product review, magazine editing, that sort of thing. So I decided to make some content for my YouTube channel and thought I'd do a product review, starting with my Giant TCX right here. I've had this bike for about 3 years now and have over 3,000 miles on it, so I've got a really good feel for this bike. I thought it was kind of timely also because it seems like a lot of people right now are shopping for gravel bikes, and they might be asking, can you use a cyclocross bike as a gravel bike? There's certain aspects that totally cross over, but there are also some differences that maybe make this not the best choice for some gravel applications. So as I review this bike, I'll make sure to address those issues. This is 2017 model. This bike has been updated a whole bunch by Giant, I believe in 2020. So there's definitely some changes. You can't get this one on in bike shops anymore unless you find it used. But it's still a really good bike. It's really representative of a lot of the stuff out on the market, and there's a lot to learn from this bike. This is a full-on cyclocross race bike though. It's got the UCI sticker on the seat tube. It doesn't have any fender mounts or rack mounts. It's made for racing. I wanted to start off by talking about a couple of things that I like about this bike a lot. Starting with the frame. This is a Giant TCX Advanced, and Advanced means it's built out of carbon. I've ridden several Giant carbon bikes over the years, mostly mountain bikes, but I've always been very happy with them. I've never had any issues with the frames as far as strength or integrity go. Since this frame is carbon, it's very lightweight. I believe without bags and bottle, this model weighs 19 pounds, even with the 40mm tires. So it's very lightweight, it's stiff, it's responsive, it climbs really well. Basically, it's super fun to ride. It's just an enjoyable bike. But if there was any criticism of that ride, it's probably that it's a little on the stiff side. So some people might not like that, especially if you're into really long rides, you know, beyond 3 to 4 hour mark. This bike might be a little harsh and not as compliant as what some people are looking for. Since this bike came out, Giant released another model called the Revolt, and that is their gravel specific frame, which probably has a little longer geometry, little slacker geometry, and the carbon layup in the frame is probably a little different so that it rides smoother, especially as the miles pile on. As far as the build goes on this bike, one big highlight is this is one of the few TCX models that has the Ultegra Di2 shifters. The electronic Shimano shifting, it's pretty much flawless. You don't have to charge the batteries that often, like once every 3 months or so, something like that. I only have a rear derailleur, I don't have a front, but I still really love having the electronic shifting. It's just a super nice system, and it's kind of a luxury item, but I enjoy having it on this bike. Since this is a cyclocross bike, it's made to ride in the mud and the sand of Europe, and as a result of that, it has really good tire clearance. So, you know, the bike originally came with 33mm tires. I think they were Maxxis mud tires. I forget which model exactly. I wore those out. I put Maxxis Rambler 38s on, which I still have one in the rear here. But I put the 38s on. It had a ton of clearance. I wore those out. I put Goodyear connectors on, and those were 40s. And the 40s fit fine. I think you could probably fit 42s on here. Maybe a 45, at least in front. The tightest clearance point is the chainstay in back. Been real happy with the tire clearance. No issues at all about that. As far as dislikes go, so this bike has hydraulic disc brakes, but it only has 140mm rotors. And 140mm rotors are fine for racing cyclocross because there's no long descents. But when you ride gravel, you're probably gonna do a long descent. And these rotors heat up, they start to howl, they will actually turn blue, they get so hot. So the next bike that I put together, I wanna make sure I have 160mm rotors. The main mechanical issue that I've had with this bike is the creaky bottom bracket. So this bike has a BB92 standard press fit bottom bracket, and I just cannot get it to quiet up. It just creaks, like every single rotation it kind of creaks. I took it to a bike shop. It was a Giant dealership. I was hoping they could rebuild it and fix the problem. They have not been able to do that. It was quiet for about 100 miles and then it started up again. I know there are Wheels manufacturing bottom brackets, the little aluminum thread together bottom brackets that are supposed to silence creaky BBs. There isn't one with the BB92 standard that fits the 30mm spindle on these rotor 3D cranks. So, and I don't want to swap the rotor cranks out. If I had Ultegra cranks with a 24mm spindle, I could probably try that, and I've been told that that will solve the problem. Moving forward, a lot of the newer cyclocross and gravel bikes have different bottom bracket standards with larger bearing sizes that help to alleviate that problem. Another thing that I dislike about this Giant TCX is that Giant puts a lot of proprietary parts on it. They have designed it so that you can only use a Giant stem because the steer tube tapers from 1.5 at the bottom to 1 1/4 at top. Most conventional frames are 1.5 to 1 1/8. So this stem is really difficult to find aftermarket replacements for. You can't put a Thompson on it. You can't put a Redshift suspension stem on this bike. So you're kind of stuck with the Giant stem, or I think Zip makes another one, an aftermarket option, but it is pretty expensive. Same deal goes for the seat post. This bike has a pretty cool seat post design, but it's not even round, it's D-shaped, and it's supposed to be super light and absorb shock pretty well, which is nice, you know, there's benefits to it, but you can't put any aftermarket seat posts on this bike. So no dropper posts, no suspension seat posts, none of that. So that's kind of a bummer. I think I mentioned this before, but this bike also has zero provisions for racks or fenders. So if you're gonna do bike packing, or if you live in the wet climate and wanna run fenders, this frame probably isn't a very good choice for those activities. But you know, it's great for racing cyclocross. You don't need fenders or racks to race cross. So those are some of my dislikes. Overall, like, even though I have some issues with this bike, I've really enjoyed it a lot. A couple of things I changed on it. It came with a more conventional handlebar design. It didn't have any flare. So I put on the Easton EA70AX gravel bars. They have like a pretty conservative flare. They aren't radical like, you know, the Salsa cow chippers or anything like that, but I like these bars a lot. Another thing that I changed is the gearing. This bike, it came with some pretty tall race gearing. It had a 40 in front and 11/28 in back, which I swapped out. I changed that front from a 40 to a 36, and I put an 11/32 in back. So a lot lower gearing on it now, but I'm looking forward to maybe putting an 11/40 on back and then putting that 40 back on front. So I think that would be ideal. That's pretty much my opinion on this bike and using a cyclocross race bike as a gravel bike. So another reason that I wanted to make this video is that I just got a brand new frame. The frame I got, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is yet, but it's a full-on gravel frame with all the new standards, all the new high-tech stuff. I'm really excited about it, and I'm really looking forward to building it up. I'm going to take a lot of the parts that I like off of this bike, and I'm going to put it on that frame. So over the course of the next couple videos, I'm going to unveil that frame and then document the build. So I'm really looking forward to that. But if you have any questions about this bike, or questions about working in the bike industry, bicycle photography, any of that stuff, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Hit that like button, and hopefully I'll see you out on the trails or back here on YouTube. Cheers.